Is learned helplessness messing with your relationship? My name is Jo from loveshiftlife.com, and I show people how to break free from negative relationship patterns by strengthening the relationship within themselves. So today I want to talk to you about learned helplessness and how that may be affecting your relationship. If you're new to me, give me a new in the comment section below, or if you're coming back, give me a high five. Learned helplessness is something that I first found out about in the first depression I ever had, which was in my late 20s, early 30s. And it was something that my therapist explained to me, that depending on the type of depression you have, learned helplessness is another way to frame depression. So learned helplessness is where you have this deep sense of I can't, and it affects every area of your life, and it feels like it's going to last forever, like nothing will change. It's this feeling of hopelessness and despair, that you have no agency, no power to affect any kind of change in your life. Now, for some people, that learned helplessness may show up in only one part of their life. So you may be incredibly accomplished at work, but find that in your relationships, you are experiencing that sense of like, I can't do anything about this relationship. No matter how hard I try, nothing is shifting. Or it might be with your emotional life. You might be trying many different things, and no matter what you do, it just feels like the pain, the hopelessness, the despair, and possibly even depression, like it just won't leave you. For some people, they feel like they have power in their relationships, but then they struggle in the area of their dreams or in their career to feel like they have power to change things. And the thing about learned helplessness, there is this sense of like, I'm trying, and people around you don't understand why you're not able to make the changes that you want to make. So if you recognize any of this, give me a 5. And I'm interested to know what area of your life you may have ever experienced this in, this feeling of helplessness. What happens in relationships when we experience this I can't in a relationship is a few things. The one is that we tend to blame the person that we're with or the people around us for why we're in pain and why our lives are not working out. That blame then creates a vicious cycle where we start to act out towards that person, number one. And number two, we might stay in a bad relationship because we're too afraid that if we leave, we're not ever going to meet someone else. We're not going to experience anything different. So there can be this hopeless acceptance of a bad situation. The extreme end of that cycle of learned helplessness in a relationship would be depression and even possibly thoughts of suicide. So if you recognize any of that, drop me a 5. And here's how I want you to think about why you're not helpless in a relationship. We can't control other people. So there is truth in that our influence on what others do is limited. And it may very well be that the person you're with or the people in your life, that you might need to leave them and get yourself a new partner and new friends. But if you don't change the learned helplessness, you will take your patterns with you. You will leave your partner and you will show up in your new relationship with your same behaviors because you haven't shifted the fundamental inside feeling of I have power in my life. I am an active co-creator of my world. And so I want you to think of it like this. If you imagine a tennis match, and if you think of like some of the great tennis players that you know, and there is a limited control they have over the ball, and they certainly have no control over their opponent. The only thing that they can control is themselves. they can work on their strength, building their physical strength, their mental strength, their strategies, work on their arm, how, their swing, their shoulder, the hip movement, the tiny little micro things about the way that they're moving. Or just building more power in one arm or in a leg, for example, could change the entire game. Often it's only 1 degree of change that can affect your entire destiny. Relationships are no different. The space between you and another person is like that ball. So you have the other person that you have no control over them. And whether or not they're working on their game, how much they're working on their game, what they do with their game, you cannot affect that. But you can affect that space between you and them. And that is your ability to respond to them is going to shape how they respond back to you. That's why you can find two people relating with one person, say, and one person will come back and say, my experience of that person is so negative. They never listen to me. And the other person may come back saying, I find that person is so attentive to me. It's not because one person is more likable than the other necessarily. It's that the level of how they are relating to that person might be different. Now, there are people where it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to make any difference. If you're with someone or relating to someone who's a sociopath, for example, or a serial killer, it doesn't matter how you relate to a serial killer. They have one agenda only. And there's probably not much you can do to stop them doing what they're doing. But one of the first things that you learn in karateka, which is something that helped me to come out of my learned helplessness in my early 30s, was that power is not what you think it is. Power is not about fighting back or necessarily about running. And it might be about those things. But sometimes power is about working with the energy that you're presented with. So your job is to work on your mental game, to heal your trauma, to look at the way that you react with the same old behaviors out of automation, out of habits, and see what you can do to change the way that you're responding to the things that hurt you, upset you, that are leaving you feel afraid. To work on your physical health, because your happiness chemicals are affected by your physical health. And the fitter you are, the more your happiness chemicals are given a chance to flow within you. And research has shown that when our happy chemicals are balanced, it's a lot easier to believe in ourselves, to believe in others, to handle life's difficulties with flair versus with anger and blame and reaction, where we just make things worse. So drop me a 5 if you resonate with this, and I would love to hear your stories. So you can share with me how learned helplessness has shown up in your life, or what you may have done to overcome it, or what you've tried and it hasn't worked. If you don't want to share below, you can also drop me a message in my inbox. And I have a free worksheet which is to help you break free from the need for approval. And this is important because when people have learned helplessness, they tend to focus a lot on getting validation from the outside is the only way to feel good. So if you can break the need for external sources of power and find that power within, it's going to be a game changer in your relationships. My name is Jo from loveshiftlive.com, and thank you for joining me.